Hey everybody, welcome to September 5th Q&A AMA. I'm your hostess, Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and I am here live to take your questions about anything: product strategy, CX, UX, research, design, metrics. Gosh, anything that is strategic or touches customers, I'm happy to talk about, especially if it's an area of my expertise. Hey, Ana Lucia. And hey, everybody joining live. And I want to remind everybody that I now have a Patreon. It's just a couple of months old, so it's still new and still growing, along with our new matching Discord, still growing. But hopefully, eventually, we'll see more action there. And everybody's welcome. No matter what role you work in, we would love to see you as part of our Discord. Hi, I10. And of course, special thanks to all of our Patreon members. We're not going to necessarily be showing the leadership patron members when we have them, since it's a little bit of a secret club. But thanks to everybody joining at the junior, mid, and senior levels. Our junior level is as little as $1 American a month, and you're going to get advance notice of things and early access to things and lots of other cool stuff. Hello, I'm going to get everybody's names wrong. Oyeniyi. Help me with that one. But great to have everybody here. And let me tell you how to ask questions. We do have 2 ahead of time, so we're going to be starting with those questions, and then we'll get to yours. You can ask right here in the live chat. It will show up on the screen with your name, so you can decide how you feel about that. If you do want to ask a longer or anonymous question, we have a link from deltacx.com/links. Hey, Chantel P, as Discord says. So you can go to deltacx.com/links, send in a question from there. It can come in anonymously. I get it in my email. I will try to keep a better eye on my email today than I normally do. And if you are a mid-level or higher patron member, you've got your own special way to ask a question, and you will be given priority and you will cut the line. So in our CXCC Discord, you can go to the Q4 AMA channel and you can ask there with your name or anonymously, and we'll get your question first. Hello, Noor. All right, so let's start with a long story question that came in during the week, because you can send these questions in at any time and I just hold on to them for later. Hello, Mar. And hello, Camila. Wow, we've got the whole family here. Okay, so let's take a look at our first question. It's a little bit of a story. Think about how you would answer it. What advice would you give this person? Hi, Debbie. I don't know how to handle this situation. I work for a major bank here in Mexico. I asked for existing data, but there's nothing, or research sessions, but there is no time or interest in doing it. The petition from business was to design a full screen with a long message on app giving a lot of advices to client to stop frauds. The only data I got was that frauds are decreasing, 271 million in December 2022 to 154 million June 2023. What can I do? This full screen message could interrupt core banking transfers and could be annoying. Besides, this could not help clients to be aware of frauds and stop from giving personal information to frauders like number, account, full name, and some others. Thank you in advance. Greets. Yes, this is a super question, and we haven't had one like it before. So I always welcome these super fresh questions, including your long stories and your work trials and tribulations. So please do share them. Let's see. So the first thing that I realized is that I've seen this before on banking websites. I've seen it where when you go to do a money transfer, especially one that is out of your country, they ask you to stop and read usually some bullet points. They're asking you, do you know this person? Is this for a good or service? Have you worked with them before? They usually list a couple of countries that are highest for fraud, though that doesn't mean everyone there is a fraud. Are you sending money to Nigeria? There's a couple of others that are usually on the list as high for fraud. And then you're supposed to be like, no, just send it anyway. What typically happens is that these pages, that's a lot of fraud. Yeah, it's quite common. And so And as the person points out, you don't know whether the fraud, like where's it coming from? These long messages tend to assume that the person who's logged into their banking to send the money is the victim, and they don't know they're sending it to a liar. Let's just call them a liar or a bad actor or a criminal. But the problem is, usually a message is not going to stop them. There's usually something that has driven the person to pay this money, and a bank's message usually doesn't fix that. And ITAN says, I don't think it's tackling fraud is something you can solve with the UX. It's education, awareness, and society goes beyond UX. And that's a little bit of the point I'm getting at, which is, let's imagine someone has told somebody that they've won a cruise, and that in order to get this cruise, because this is a common scam, they need to send $300 to the company for the cruise taxes. That seems like not a lot of money, and wow, I'm going to get a free cruise, a $6,000 value. Sure, I'll do that. Now, you could give that person a screen or bulleted lists or warnings, and someone will still go, nope, I'm pretty confident about this, and they'll send the money anyway. So I agree with Aitan that this doesn't necessarily stop a victim from making that mistake, and it certainly won't stop a fraudster from sending money to themselves. Malika says, agree with Aitan, and Mar says, 275 million in a month. Yeah, these things are certainly real. And you have to remember, this goes from all kinds of blackmail to travel scams to think about all the employment scams that we sometimes see on LinkedIn, where someone says they were offered a job and all of a sudden they had to send money to buy a computer for themselves. You know, there's so many ways that you can be scammed. And ultimately, what I would tell the bank is, we can put this page in. We should measure some things. This is where metrics and measurements can really help us and tell us more of the story. Give stories on the site of how people were punished. Interesting. First of all, thinking about what Mar said, which is an interesting point, I wonder if the text should be specifically written to include the most common scams. You're buying computer equipment for someone you don't know, or a job you were just given. Someone is asking for money because of whatever. And someone you're talking to on online dating who you've never met is telling you they need money and they're in trouble. Like, can these give some real world examples of common scams, or is this text really bland and broad? Because maybe the examples could help. But here's two things that I wish that I could know. Number one, I want to know how long people spend on that page. Because if you put that page in the middle and everyone goes, a page of words, next, or a page of words, confirm, then what have we really done? We would have to look at that metric later and go, well, congratulations to us. We put we put that message in there and people spent no time on it. They didn't read it. They probably didn't absorb it. It probably didn't change anything. I'd also want to know by the end of the page how many people continued with the transactions and how many people canceled it and never made that transfer at all. I'm wondering, can we say, wow, in a month or two, we seem to have stopped this many transactions, or X% of transactions were never made, including people coming back later and trying to send to the same person. Like, if this is really fraudulent, they probably shouldn't send to that person at all, not just today. So we need to watch that in a little bit of a longer arc. This is success criteria. We should know anytime we do a small or large project, and even adding one page is a small project, I want to know, did this change anything? Did people seem to read this page? Did people seem to change their behavior and stop their transaction? Did they stop it now, but then send money to that person later? Because maybe they said something to that person. The person said, oh, don't worry, you can trust us. And they said, okay. So we're really talking about trying to change human behavior, and especially with any project, I want to see you tracking metrics. So while you might not have good information from the bank, you might not have good data, someone's going to write that page. You're probably going to have to put it in there, but you can push for that page to be measured in one way, in multiple ways, for, does this seem to be successful? Does this seem to be working, helping? Ana Lucia says the Portuguese version of Venmo had to add a couple of those warnings, but not in an annoying way. A lot of scammers tried to use it and took advantage of people's lack of knowledge and expertise. From what I've been observing, it's actually working. The scams haven't been working as they were before. Camila says, I'd look for data on social media groups as a quick first step of digging deeper. Oh, like are people on social media groups talking about being scammed or how they were scammed? Sure, we might see that on Reddit or Facebook posts or tweets or something else. But I think ultimately, what some of us are pointing at, in addition to what can we measure to see if this page is really working, would also be, what should this page say? And it sounds like a few of us are saying, learn more about the most common scams, either scams to individuals or scams to businesses that involve bank transfers of money, where maybe something on the page can be written to wake someone up and I don't know. It's a tough and complicated issue. It's probably not solved with a warning message. A warning message might help some people, and that might make it worth it. But chances are many people will see a long page of text and just go next, continue, confirm, whatever. That's why I'd want to measure how will we know if this page worked? What can we measure that will happen more of or less of? Maybe will we see, here's another great one, will we see fewer calls to our customer support line saying, I've been scammed, I paid for something and I never got the thing, or I paid for this thing and the job wasn't real? Are we tracking those calls, and can we see if we have fewer of them? Chantel says 271 million in December versus 154 million might not tell you the full picture. Scams around the holiday will be higher. Yes, well spotted. Critical thinking, hooray. Yes, very well spotted. It doesn't mean that this is a true downward trend. It could just be a dip because of the time of year, and this could go back up in that November, December time. Excellent point. Good thinking. Ana Lucia says, people here are now warning others about common scams and being actively against this. Share advice, something I rarely saw a year ago. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, everybody, for all of these ideas and the audience participation. But I would certainly inspire the person who asked the question, our friendly bank person in Mexico, even if you can't stop this project or change this project, can you get the project manager or someone else to be checking for some baseline metrics now and monitoring some metrics after this goes live to see if it's really making a difference? That would be curious. I am curious about that. All right, next question's a shorty, which means those are the two, oops, wrong direction. These are the two questions I got up front, which means if you have a question, yours is next. Let me also check our Patreon to see if we have any mid-levels or higher asking in the secret channel. No, not yet. Okay, hi Mike. Happy Tuesday. If we're here together, it's probably a Tuesday. So let's take a look at our next question. Sorry, wrong pointing finger. Here we go. This question says, I will do usability testing for a new mobile app. The users have never seen it before. Should I let them explore the app before giving them the first scenario? I'm going to say no, and I'm going to tell you why, but it's audience participation. So do you know why it's not a good idea or the best idea to let your participants, your testing participants, explore an app, website, interface, or anything else before giving them tasks or scenarios? Okay, while we wait for those, I'm just checking my email to see if I'm missing a question. And I'm not. So send it in if you have it. I'm looking. Ana Lucia says, oh, by the way, my brother worked in the fraud department of a known financial startup, and I just remembered that kind of department has useful data for sure. Yes, your analytics people, your fraud people, your legal team, these are all, and customer support. Mar says because they would have learned on it. Exactly. It's bias. It's savvy. If I say, okay, we want to test how this remote control, or you wouldn't say this to someone, but let's say you want to see how a remote control works for people. Do you hand it to them first and say, examine this and get to know it, and then I'll ask you some questions about it? No. Yeah, Chantel says, if they already saw it, they'll have memory recall. It won't be as organic. Yes, it's another reason why we tend to do a lot of our evaluative research with non-users and non-customers. We do want people who maybe aren't customers at our company at all. We don't want them to have seen our systems, because once they've seen our systems, they have some knowledge, some awareness, some familiarity with how to use them. That means they are probably already creating, everybody say it with me, they have knowledge, they have workarounds, right? They already know stuff, and they've got, am I in the middle? And they've got some savvy that we don't want them to have. We really want to catch people when they've never seen this before, and we are really watching their first experience with it. Chetna, hi, says usability testing is for first-time visitors. Yes, it's always better to usability test with first-time visitors. That's always your first choice. Do not, where possible, do not pick internal coworkers unless they're the users of the thing, because it's enterprise. Do not pick existing customers. They've seen this or a similar version or your system in general. You definitely want to choose people who fit your target audience. Don't go from outside that group. Don't say, well, this is really for B2B salespeople, but I found some moms in my play group. No, unless those moms are B2B salespeople, this is the wrong person. So the recruiting is important, and then we want to make sure they don't have that savvy. You want to catch them. You want to see their face. You know, for those of us doing observational studies, whether these are moderated and we're there with the person, or they're sharing their video, or it's a video system that's unmoderated and they're recording their camera, we want to see the face, read the face, hear their voice, hear sighing, pauses. We want to see their first time looking at this. We don't want to give them time to start figuring it out first. It's why you don't get to read the test before taking the test. Camila says, I love to observe users' first seconds with a new product. Those moments are telling a lot. Yeah, I'm planning some evaluative research at my new job, and I can't wait to see the first time people see this brand new thing that we're still building. I know it's going to be mind-blowing. I10 says, but non-users might never use that kind of product. No, that's why recruiting is important, because I10's got a point. If we don't pick the right people, we've still done crappy research. You do want to try to find non-users and non-customers where possible, but they should fit in our target audience. So for example, let's pick something that I use here. Okay, I have a TV. You don't know it. I don't have a computer monitor. I'm looking at a giant TV. I have a giant TV. So I'm looking at an LG TV. Funny enough, all the TVs in our house are LG. Hashtag not sponsored. We're just cheap. And they're pretty good. Now, if you want me to test your LG TV or LG remote control, I'm probably the wrong person. I have a familiarity with 2 different models and 2 different remote controls in my house already. But if you have a different TV that I've never used before, a brand that I've never seen or used, I could be a good target participant, because I have TVs, I use TVs with remote controls, but I haven't used your brand or your type. So just because someone isn't a current user or customer doesn't mean they're the wrong person to research with. That's where we need to use our recruiting and maybe a screener survey to make sure that we have found the right target audience and not just any breathing human. Mike says, just say no to crappy research. Yeah, please do say no to crappy research. I wish we said more no's to crappy research. Please, please. That is where we are with questions. If anyone has a question or a follow-up question, you are next. So please ask about anything. I'm happy to talk about any topic that's on your mind. If you have follow-up questions or fresh questions, These are all welcome. Again, you can send it to other side, deltacx.com/links. You can also use the Patreon Q for AMA in our new CXCC Discord. Or you can ask here in the chat, though your name will come up on it. But don't be embarrassed. We all have questions. Let's see. Does it then mean competitor users are always good users to test? Not necessarily. It depends on what we're screening for. If we want people who are already consumers in this space, then maybe they are competitors, customers, or clients, and that's who we're going to look for, and that's who we're going to get. We might say, we're LG TV company, but we want to meet people using Samsungs and Insignias and someone named me a TV brand, Sony's, not sponsored, because we want to make sure that they are consumers of TVs of roughly the price range of what ours are. That might be what you're shooting for. Or maybe you're trying to move into a new market and you're saying, hey, let's meet people who don't have these TVs. Maybe they have no TV. Maybe they have a tiny TV and you're trying to sell them a big TV. So it really depends on who you're trying to study and why, which is one of the many reasons why. Let's put this, our old friend graphic up. Where did it go? Here we go. Which is why when we're doing research, there's a lot more to do than just finding a couple of people and showing them some wireframes or a prototype. We want to make sure we find the right people. Recruiting is a part of that. And depending upon what you're looking for, it might make sense to get competitors, customers, or in some cases, you want people who don't really have a solution yet at all. So I can't say there's always one way to do it. It's going to be, and unfortunately, it depends. But these are great questions. Okay, let's put Chantel's question on the list and on the screen. Okay. Here we go. How do I educate people around rage clicks? The default notion is that it's a negative, and most articles seem to sell it as a negative, but I disagree that it's not always the case. All right, I think I'd have to know more about this. What conversations are you having with your coworkers about rage clicks? Are you using a Clarity or a Full Story or something that is tracking the rage clicks? Can you put together a simple 10-slide presentation showing some of our statistics on rage clicks, showing the screens and the objects or text where they're happening, and explaining what you believe these rage clicks mean and what data or assumption you have as to what the rage clicks mean. Because I agree they're not always a negative. Sometimes they clue us in that we're missing something. People think this is linked. It's not linked. Why don't we link this? That doesn't have to be a negative. So I think I would need to know a little bit more. It almost sounds like you've tried to have these conversations and people just thought they were, we use Datadog, not sponsored and not recommended. Yeah, I don't have a hashtag for not recommended, but I certainly have not sponsored. But yes, not recommended in many cases on this channel as well. We're usually talking about things we don't like. So yeah, I think the next time somebody presents rage clicks, if somebody says, oh, rage clicks, these are bad, I might find some gentle way to say, well, how do we know that this is bad? What is a rage click? Great question from Mar. Easily Googleable, but happy to tell you. So a rage click is, let's see what Chantel says. It might give you a little clue. We have some longer articles and text-heavy sections. Clarity says these are rage clicks. I think people are tracking the text or highlighting the sections. Okay, so you think your Clarity is giving you the wrong information. Aren't rage clicks usually something out of frustration or confusion? So typically a rage click, which is not necessarily rageful or angry or negative, is where people are clicking on something in your interface that isn't clickable. If they clicked on something that were clickable, a button, text, a picture, they would go wherever that link took them, or whatever's meant to happen would happen. But sometimes people click on things that aren't linked to anything because they think they are or should be. We've all seen that. We've all seen where there was a picture of something and some text and a button, and we didn't click on the button, we clicked on the picture and nothing happened. Maybe we clicked on the picture again. That could be called a rage click, because we're like, doesn't this thing work? Is this thing broken? So I don't know how different systems calculate rage, whether one click on that thing ends up in the rage click bucket or if it takes multiple clicks. But I think even one click on it, if enough people do it, it would tell us people think this should be linked. Why don't we link it up? Why didn't we link it up? You know, usually there's nothing wrong with having multiple things link if people might think from the context that the picture might link and the headline might link and the button might link. Don't just link the button. So Clarity says they're rage clicks, but I think people are tracking the text or highlighting the section. So my next question is, given what Clarity can do and systems like Hotjar and Full Story, can you ask it to show you the videos of the people matching the rage clicks? Can you filter that out? I know sometimes you can filter out the videos you can watch by something people did or a page that they saw. Can you filter that out by rage clicks and watch those videos? Because then you might see if they're highlighting text. I10 says, question for later. Great. Well, this will be our next question. Mar says, it's a usability issue. Yes, I would say it is a usability issue. Whether that issue happened because a designer didn't show it linked in their documentation, like a wireframe or a prototype, or engineering forgot to link it up even though it was in the design. It's not a matter of whose fault it is. The user sees it as a mistake in the interface. They might think it's broken or it's a mistake, or I should be able to click on this. Why isn't it going anywhere? So we would want to make sure that, especially if we're seeing enough of these, that we circle back and link these things up where possible. It's a small fix. It may or may not make a huge difference in the experience, but always best when our system works the way people expect. Then they know we care. We also have a question from Camila. Let's put that on the list. Sorry if I'm pronouncing names incorrectly. Mike says, could a good percentage of what may be considered a rage click also be impatience when something doesn't happen fast enough after clicking? Yes, absolutely. It could be on either end of that. It could be the page didn't fully load and people are starting to try to click on things even though the page isn't fully loaded and that functionality isn't there. Or it could be on the other end of it, like you're saying, where the page has fully loaded and people are clicking on things but they can't tell if anything's happening, so they click on it again. We can certainly track all of these things, and they do tell us a story. The question is, are we listening? I see an anonymous question is coming in, so we'll check that next. Chantel says, yeah, we can see the screen recordings, and that's where I'm seeing they're not necessarily clicking, but all over the text. Yeah, maybe show some of your teammates some of these videos and say, this is what it means, and this is what we should do about it. The reason I asked if I should let users check or explore. Oh, we have a follow-up from someone who came earlier. Hello, earlier person. Okay, let's sneak this person in because they have a follow-up question to the early question. Hooray for follow. Thank you for watching us live. Okay, this is a follow-up question. Always love to get those. Okay, follow-up person says, the reason I asked if I should let users check or explore the app before giving the first task is because I read and watched Steve Krug do that. He asked the users to look at the site and ask them, what do you make of it? What strikes you about it? What can you do here? Maybe this is outdated. I would find that outdated. I do recognize that some people did these types of things, and it shows up sometimes in really old books about ways that we want to talk to users or do research. But I feel like we've evolved past that, and I always wonder if these people did new editions of their book, if they would keep that in, because I think it really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want to put something in front of someone and go, what strikes you about it? what can you do here? Now, what usually happened was the testing that was what strikes you, what can you do here, was not an interactive prototype. Some of this stuff came before we had good interactive prototyping. We didn't have Acture, or back in the day iRise, or some of these other tools where you could relatively quickly make a real prototype. So what happened was you ended up showing people a wireframe. You showed them a bunch of boxes on a page and some text fields, and you know that they can't click on it for reals and they can't interactively use it realistically. So you have to say, what do you think you can do here? Though that's still not what I would do. I would still give them a task and say, okay, you're here to, you need to fill out a form because a family member recently died. Go. Oh, first I would click on this. Okay, and what do you think would happen there? This is what we used to have to do many, many years ago before we had good prototyping tools. I started using Acture in 2011. So this would technically and Acture had competitors at the time that were very deep, extensive prototyping tools, whereas Acture doesn't have as much direct competition now. Some of those went out of business. So these were some of the things we used to do when we didn't have a developer build to show people or a good UX prototype. So I would probably say that this is not only outdated, but it doesn't really get at what we want to know from our research. Chances are from our research, we don't want to know what did they make of it. We probably wanted to know if it solved a problem, created a problem, was easy to use, made sense. There's probably other things we want to know where what do you make of this doesn't really answer our question. That is the way that I see that. Let's see. Let's see if there's any comments I'm missing. No. Okay, let's take a look at our next question. Thank you for that follow-up. Great that you're asking, because sure, there's lots of books, and sometimes older books still have current information, and sometimes older books are just stuck in the period of time in which they were written, and now we look back and we go, oh, we don't totally do that anymore, or we don't need to do that, or that doesn't totally exist. So good thinking. Question for later. Well, it's later. What if we have 4 different versions of the same product or flow? I feel like it's a bad idea to test 4 different flows with one user and tire them. Am I right? So my usual approach on this is to not show someone more than 2. I think 4 is a lot. And remember, every time you show them 1, they become more savvy. They have an idea of what's generally going on here and maybe how you tend to design or how they're going to get from A to B. So I usually just like to show people 2. I ask if people are fighting over 4 different versions. First of all, that tells me we don't know. We don't know what's best for our user. We're guessing. We have guesses and assumptions. We really don't know. Can we narrow this down to our 2 best versions and check those 2? And what I do is I make sure I have an even number of participants. Half of them see A first, and half of them see B first. That way we don't end up with any weird results because everybody saw A first, 10 people saw A first, or whatever. And so everyone thought B was easier because they had a little bit of savvy from seeing A. So I like to do it like that. Usually I try to do maybe 6 and 6 people, where you have 12 people total testing both of these, but half will see A first and half will see B first, and we give them the same tasks in both. 4 by 6. Yeah, that's the downside, is that would end up with a lot of people. It would end up with more time. And I think we have to kind of admit to ourselves that we're really guessing. If we have 4 versions of a thing, my guess is what? That's the designer, the product manager, the engineer, and a stakeholder. Like, this is everybody's different ideas of how this should go. Why don't we know? Why don't we have more data or evidence or research that tells us this would be the best flow? If you really understand users from early upfront discovery research, you don't have to use evaluative research as, hey, we have a bucket of guesses. Can someone help us sort through our bucket of guesses? So I would say, can you narrow this down to 2? I don't think I've ever tested more than 2. If there are 4 designs that are wanted, who decides which 2 should be tested? To me, that's the designer, but I know at many companies, designers are not empowered and they are bullied by product managers. So I would like to say the designer should be able to say, okay, these are the 2 best designs and best flows because they really streamline things for the user. They have the fewest steps. They are the most logical and intuitive, and there you go. So don't dot vote on them. Don't ask people to pick their favorite. It really has to be done with the user. If it really has to be done through usability testing, I would probably still only test 2 at a time. And maybe you have 12 people who see A and B, and you have 12 people who see C and D. And then before I test the other 2, the winners against each other, because this is not some sort of March Madness, I would want to have a conversation with the team when I get those results back and say, hey, here's what worked about A and what worked about B. Here's what failed about A or didn't work about A, and here's what didn't work about B. Now here's the same for C and D. Because remember, to me, in good evaluative testing, you're always testing a idea or design or prototype against itself. I don't bully designers. I let them do their work, says unnamed LinkedIn users. I sure hope you do, unnamed LinkedIn user. Unfortunately, not all product managers are like you, but we want more of the yous, whoever you were. So I would say don't rush to then test the winner of this and the winner of this or whatever. Usually we learn that there's something good about each of these that worked really well for users, and there's something bad or multiple things bad about each of these that really worked badly for users. And usually what I tell people is after you do some testing like that, come up with one design. Come up with one design that represents the best of everything, that keeps the best of what worked from the designs and takes away the things that didn't work or changes the things that didn't work. You can't keep testing 3 designs in every round, because again, it really just tells me that we're guessing. It's just guessing. 4 people are not enough. Yes, typically for evaluative testing, the rule is 5 people per persona or target audience. So if you wanted to do testing with something, you would technically be trying to get at least 5 people per persona or segment. If you have 4 target segments, then you're trying to get 20 people. If you have 3 target segments, you're trying to get 15 people. Now that is the general best practice, and of course it's not 100% perfect. Sometimes there are reasons to use slightly more, slightly fewer, certainly more if we're trying to get more people with accessibility needs or other disabilities or conditions. But that's why I think if you can get at least 6 and 6, then you've got 12, and they're all seeing the same 2 things. And if you have more segments or personas, then you need to go higher than 12. Maybe you have to do 20 and 10 see A first and 10 see B first, but all of them will see both A and B. So Mar is right in that sense. Okay, let's take a look at our next question. Let's also check for anonymous questions. I don't want to miss them, and sometimes I do, and then you're mad at me. All right, hold on. Here we go. I am looking for smart ideas. You've come to the right place. Our audience will help on how to keep engagement of internal employees, they're our customers, in UX research activities. Any ideas? I guess my question would be, what do you mean by engagement, Camila? Because if you're saying they start a test and they don't finish it, that's trouble. But if you're saying they test with you and they don't love it, I guess I don't totally care if they love it or not. I still need them to do it. So I guess my question is, peel away a layer of the onion and tell me what's really going on. So what do you mean engagement? And here's another funny thing. Is anyone else thinking this? If they don't want to take a few minutes or a little bit more to test this thing and try it out, How are they going to use it? How are they going to use this daily, weekly, if they don't even want to look at it now? Is that data? Does that tell us something? Is that a wake-up call? I don't know. Depends what we learn from Camila. Mike says, it would be wild if you had a tool that captured all the questions asked here and your answers and placed them on a site people could search on. Yeah, I am working on something like that. There is a company claiming that they have an AI that can read all of your articles and the transcripts of all of your videos, and then people can ask the AI bot a question. It only pulls from the stuff you've put in, and when it answers you, it tells you what article or video that's found in. So I am working on that, Mike. I was waiting months for them to have good terms and conditions. They did not start out with good terms and conditions, and I refused to sign on with them. But they just told me last week they fixed their terms and conditions. I signed on this weekend, but honestly couldn't figure out how to use it. Had a little UX problem. So I'm hoping to have some time to feed a few videos and articles into it and see how it does. And I'll let you know. I think it would be great to have that kind of virtual Debbie where you have these questions and hopefully AI can figure out where the answers are from among, 800 videos on Delta CX and, so many other places. So that is my dream for people, but I want to make sure that it answers the way I would. I want to make sure that it doesn't make stuff up. I want to make sure if you ask it, should I do design thinking? It doesn't say, yes, design thinking is the best and here's why. Because obviously I'm more hesitant about design thinking and I first like to check what your definition of it is before I recommend for or against it. That would be cool. I don't need to tell you your answers are awesome. Thank you for enjoying my answers. I hope they'll be helpful and we'll see. And it looks like the type of system where I think you can decide whether you want to share it with people for free or whether it's paid. I'm not even thinking about that first. Obviously, step one is get some stuff into it where we all know what my answers are and there's no mistaking what my answers are. And then ask it some questions and see what it comes up with and see if it's quality. If it's not quality, let's not bother. Camila, any follow-up information to help us answer your question? If so, I'll put it back up on the screen, but if not, I would move on. But that's all the questions I have. Nothing in Discord from our patrons. Please also remember that we have canceled most of our Wednesday and Monday live streams to instead do live webinars in Google Meet. Oops, over here. cxcc.to/events. Check them out. They're all in there, the ones that we've scheduled. There's got to be 10 of them coming up in September and October alone, and I'm starting to plan November. Make sure you have RSVP'd for all of our Wednesday and Monday webinars. They're all free. You can join them in Google Meet. And if you miss them, they're all going to be recorded. Paid patrons at even the $1 level will get them first, and then a couple of weeks later they'll go up on YouTube. Okay, Camila says we want to build a kind of database of potential respondents for major products and keep those people in stream of feedback loop. It's not one task and buy. Okay, so you certainly can create a panel. I think we had a show on this on the Delta CX channel. This is the Customer Experience, Customer Centricity YouTube channel. If you search for Delta CX, oh gosh, was it episode 106? Somebody help me out. These are all from memory. Let's have a look. Oh, YouTube. You should be able to go to YouTube and write Delta CX 106 and see what comes up. Delta CX, if it's not 106, it's probably 104. No, 106 was critical thinking. 104 was boot camps. 105, I know it's around there. Yes, 105. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, we only have 200 episodes, and I managed to remember that one. Episode 105, our friend Sotiris came by and talked about how can you set up your own research panel of people you might be going to over and over again. And you also want to make sure you don't wear them out. You want to try to make sure you're not contacting them more than 2 or 3 times a year. I haven't seen that show in a long time. It's an oldie. What date is it from? 2 years ago at least. That might help you out a bit. It's not possible to pay them for participation. I was thinking about other possible awards. Yeah, you can still get them into your own panel, and if you're not allowed to give them something, and sometimes you're just not allowed to give them something, and that's okay. Maybe ask if you can do a drawing where people who are part of this week's testing, one person will get a $20 Starbucks gift card if there's Starbucks where you live. If not, some sort of beloved store. So see if you can give something or put people in a drawing for something. It's really up to your company's policy, so I can't say. Yes, put it on the watch list. Yes. Mar, you have a question, and I can't tell if it's a follow-up question or if it's a fresh question. At the beginning of a project, don't you have a signed-off consensus for commitment to the project? What is that related to? Help. Yeah, so as for engagement with people, the incentives definitely help. Sometimes you have to play on emotions a little bit. Hey, our team is trying to make your work better, faster, and easier. We're trying to build the internal tools you use so that you're more efficient. We're trying to make our internal tools suck less, and maybe someone will smile. So you can certainly play into some of the emotional aspect of it, but certainly without some sort of financial incentive, it can be hard for people to take time away from their work to help you, even though helping you helps them. I see we do have a anonymous question. Let's put that up. Hold on, gotta paste everything. Okay. We've actually had this question before. Who knows what I'm going to say? Do you know what I'm going to say? Here we go. This question says, can you please give me some ideas for passing product designer interviews? I think the best way of showing a positive vibe is understanding the job description well and trying to answer the questions as exactly as written in the job description. I'd like to learn your opinion. We've had something like this before. Now, first of all, the missing piece of information here, which you might not know either, is why aren't you passing the interview? What is happening in the interview that they're not selecting you? Now, let's just say, for example, related to the person who couldn't get people to take in part of the project. Oh, I see. So Mara is saying at the beginning of a project, do you already have people who are committed to be your testers or participants? That's an interesting idea too. Thank you, Mara. Okay, so back to, this side. This question, ping. Let's say I ask you a question. I say, tell me about your UX process. If you repeat back something to me that's in your in the job description, will I feel like you really get UX? Will I feel like you really understand your own process and can speak to it? Or will I feel like you are just parroting back to me the job description? Do you think that I want to hear my job description read back to me? I don't. Remember, the job description is now a little less relevant. You made it to the interview. The interview is now your opportunity to show me that you're someone I want to work with. And I might want to work with you because you're smart, interesting, experienced, critical thinker, whatever it is. Who knows what the interviewer is looking for? But chances are they're not looking for you to read the job description back to them. They think you fit the job description. You got the interview. Now, make sure that you are answering their questions well, because I find that the people who typically don't make it through to the next round is because there's something about a question that they didn't answer that well. And you might not know what that is. If they're not telling you, if they're not saying, oh, you didn't answer this question very well, then you don't know. But chances are it's not because you didn't say their own job description back to them enough. remember, positive vibe is your personality. It's not about, part of it is what you say, but part of it is your personality. We recently did some interviews where I'm working now, and there were a couple of people who did not do well in the interview because they kind of didn't stop talking. We have a limited amount of time with them. We asked them a question that we thought would have a relatively short answer, and sometimes they went on for 10 minutes. Is that a positive vibe? Is that showing understanding? Does that make you seem like someone I want to work with? We did some shows on this in Delta CX, I think around episode, 127, 128, 129. Somebody help me with these numbers. And this was really about how to answer questions in a more concise and clear way. What I normally do is if somebody asks me a question, they say, hey, what's your UX process? And I say, oh, my UX process is to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and then this. But of course, all depending on time and budget and what the project is. Did that answer your question, or is there something I can go into more detail about? Now, the mistake I think some people make is they keep talking. They go, oh, wow, I better show them how much I know and give them endless detail. Not everybody wants that. So are you taking a breath and asking people, does that answer your question? Or, did I touch on what you were looking for, or is there more I can say about that? And sometimes they'll go, no, that was pretty good. Or they'll say, yeah, there is more that you can say about that. You talked about doing research. What type of research do you normally do? Okay, now answer that question. So I would definitely be recommending against repeating back what's in the job description. I recommend against asking ChatGPT or an AI to try to come up with an answer for the question the person has asked you. You want to be genuine. So passing a product designer interview depends on what they've been asking you. If they've been asking you for your process and you don't have a good answer, you might not pass the interview. If they've asked you how you previously collaborated with product managers and engineering teams and you didn't have a good answer, you might not pass the interview. If they asked you to show them your work and there was something about your work that wasn't good or you didn't present it well, you might not pass the interview. So many jobs right now have hundreds or even thousands of people applying. Companies feel very confident that they don't have to move forward with someone they don't kind of love. So, what does that look like? We don't know, but we can only try and do our best job to answer the questions in a clear, concise, complete way that makes us seem like someone they'd like to work with. But if you read the job description back to me, if I say, hey, tell me about your UX process, and you go, I use information architecture and content strategy and interaction design and prototyping in tools like Figma. Oh, come on. We can tell when you're reading. And don't memorize it either. This is not the way to go. This is not the way. Alrighty. So I think we'll be wrapping up for today. It's been about an hour. And I tried to do this every Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we do have Dr. Nick joining, though I will have just landed on an airplane. I will do my best to do this on time. If not, we might need to move it out. Please check our Slack and Discords in the live events channel for any notification of it being canceled or moved later. But I'll do the best I can, knowing that I am stuck with whatever happens on planes. What else can I tell you? Just a reminder that tomorrow is our free webinar. Won't be live on YouTube. It'll be on Google Meet. So check cxcc.to/events. This one is on how metrics influence product strategy. Let's see. Thursday is our Patreon only AMA. If you are mid-level or higher, right? Mid-level or higher for Patreon only AMA. I'm forgetting. Oh, I'm so sleepy. And then I'm going to be traveling for almost 2 weeks. So some of our shows will be canceled. Some of them are going on. I'll make sure that even if my calendar posts that they are happening, I'll write in the Slack or Discord which ones are not happening. All right. I'm going to flame us out of here. Not having UX department seems scary for a junior. Oh, I'm saying goodbye, and Anna's sending in a question. Anna! Do we have time for a fast question? Let's see. I wish everybody sent in their questions earlier. I'm trying to get out of here. Okay, let's take a look at what she's saying. I'm now thinking about companies and where to apply. The ideal thing would be to get a UXR position in a company that already has a UXR there or is more mature, but it seems that's just the ideal, probably not realistic. Not having a UX department seems a bit scary for a junior. What do you recommend? Typically, I recommend having mentors and coaches. Many jobs, even when they do have a UX department, very often you still end up a UX team of one, in that you are sometimes the only person on your project, so you don't have the help or support or team that you imagine. In a bigger or more mature company, you might have other researchers who you could ask questions to or run things by or maybe get some eyeballs on your work, but chances are they're not also assigned to your project, so your time with them is minimal. That's why it's really important wherever juniors end up that they make sure they have mentors and coaches behind the scenes, because they're probably not going to get the support and the work reviews and some of the mentoring and coaching that they're expecting. I think the best thing you have to do is fill it in behind the scenes with other people, because companies usually don't take time out of other people's days to become your mentor or coach. You can ask in the interview, like, are there more senior researchers here? Will they have any time to review my work or work with me? And sometimes companies say yes, and the answer is really no. So if you do end up having a round of interviews where you are interviewing with that senior or lead or somebody, you can say, how much time per week will you have to review my work and meet with me? And they'll be like, what? And then some people will take that job anyway, because maybe it's a stepping stone to something better. It's an opportunity to do some work and learn. And hopefully you have some mentors or coaches behind the scenes, free or paid, who can help you with your work. If you are showing them real work, make sure you've signed non-disclosure or confidentiality agreements with them so that they know that this is private. You're probably not supposed to show it to them. They definitely shouldn't be showing it or talking about it to anybody else. All right, officially wrapping up now. Thanks again to everybody for joining. I hope to see you joining our Patreon. There's also a free level for people who just kind of want to be on the mailing list and first to know. Or I hope you'll join at least $1 level and get more out of it. All right, let's take this question off the screen, say goodbye, and I hope to see people tomorrow in Google Meet for our webinar on metrics and product strategy. Bye.